with a dedication to the mission of learning and search for the truth, and by vote of the faculty with powers granted under the corporate laws of the state of Georgia, and by virtue of authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Clark College, I confer upon you the degree Doctor of Humanities with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto appertaining.
Hello, I'm Walt Elder. Welcome to Atlanta International Magazine. During a recent visit to Atlanta, Reverend Allan Boesak, the president of the United Democratic Front in South Africa, gave a rousing acceptance speech at Clark College, in which he spoke of the crippling effects of apartheid in his country and the determination of his people. Also at an affair hosted by Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young, he spoke of the problems and solutions that South Africans and Americans must look at.
Mr. Chancellor and Dr. Blake, dear brothers and sisters, I have been told that we have a few minutes in which to say something. Now, I don't know whether these people at Coca-Cola go to church. But when you get to a meeting like this and you try to tell a preacher he's got 5 minutes, you better think again. The little boy came up here and gave this to me. His name is Chu Kitwana. He's 9 years old. 1 year older than my son, and he says, apartheid, apartheid, where will it end? Apartheid, apartheid, don't do it again. Apartheid, apartheid, when will it stop? Apartheid, apartheid, you make my heart drop. With all the segregation laws you spread around, apartheid, apartheid, you make me frown. Apartheid, apartheid, the whole world is on our side. Apartheid, apartheid, you'll die on the vine. Thank you, Chu. I'll take this home with me, and I'll put this on my wall, because it is so true that out of the mouths of the little ones of God will come the truth, spoken clearly and loudly, unfettered by the diplomacy we grown-ups sometimes have to employ, unhindered by the niceties of phraseology that academics have to employ, unhindered by the unnecessary words that preachers have to employ. You tell it straight as it is. Apartheid will die. Of course it will, because it never, ever stood a chance. I am grateful, as my friend Dr. Gerwel is, for this wonderful occasion and for this honor. And as he had said, brothers and sisters, we cannot accept this for ourselves alone. In honoring us, you have chosen to honor South Africa's people who struggle and die and suffer for the sake of our freedom. I can do no more but to accept this degree, this award, this honor on their behalf. I accept it on behalf of those thousands of young people and students who sacrificed their lives and their futures and their study for the sake of the struggle. I accept this for the sake of the 23,000 people who are in prison at the moment under the emergency regulations, 40% of whom are under 18 years old. I accept this on behalf of those 5 comrades who have died over the last few weeks in prison. Again, we will begin to hear those worn out old excuses that the police used to make in the days when so many died while in detention. Oh, the one fell out of a 9th-story window, the other slipped on the soap in the shower, the other hanged himself. I accept on behalf of those children whom the South African government had put in camps, correction camps, so that they in those camps, after having been kept in detention for weeks on end, will be taught a different attitude to the government. And anyone who knows the South African government knows that this is a new and chilling development. I can accept this only on behalf also of my own children. Little Allan was 7 years old when he had his first brush with the police. We were having a candlelight action whereby all people were asked on a Wednesday night not to put on their electric lights but to burn a candle in as many windows as you can. And the candle became a symbol of our resistance. It became a symbol of our protest. It became a symbol of our determination that the struggle will not end until we have won. It became a symbol of our faith that the light of Jesus Christ had come into the darkness, and the darkness, even the darkness of apartheid, will never overcome it. It became a symbol of our faith that those who have all those guns and tear gas and dogs and policemen and tanks and Caspers and hippos, even though they have all the armaments of the world, will not be able to stop a people who have made a decision that they shall be free. And so as my son walked with that candle down the street to go and explain to the neighbors that they should burn that candle that night, he was stopped by a policeman, he and his little friend David, and they grabbed them and shook them and scared them half to death and told them, if you burn that candle that tonight, you'll see what will happen to you. He came home and he was, of course, pretty shaken, told me the story, but in the end said something that I think was a profound political insight and a prophetic word. He said, Daddy, why is the government so afraid of a candle? Now, I'm telling you, that a government that is afraid of a candle has no future. They cannot last. People who depend only on guns and violence and more violence and the threat of violence and intimidation have no future. They think they have power because they have a gun, but we know better. We know that merely reaching for a gun will not stop the tide of change that has already begun in South Africa and which will go its course until the very end. We know that no matter how many times Mr. P.W. Botha gets up in Parliament waving his finger, saying to us that you have not yet seen the full military power of this state, no matter how many times he says that, he must understand that our people have determined that we shall be free. There is no force in the world, my brothers and sisters, that can stop a people whose decision is clear. And so they have thrown us in jail over the last few years so often. They have kept us in solitary confinement. They have killed our children on the streets as if they were dogs. And indeed, there was a Soweto father whose 4-year-old girl had died from gunshots from the police. And when they were asked why they did this, the excuse was, well, you know, we didn't know. We thought that she was a dog. But even as they do this, they must know that what Hugh Kitwana wrote here is true. Apartheid, you will die on the vine. Because evil may be triumphant for the moment, but it has no future. Violence may be overpowering for the moment, but it has no future. Oppression may be there for the moment, but it has no future. Taking people's future away from them may look all right at the moment, but it has no future. Last week, I heard that the South African government has withdrawn charges of treason against me because basically, there was nothing really. I mean, they didn't have anything. So my one daughter said, Daddy, only they knew what they had withdrawn, which is true. But the point I want to make is this. I then promised my church, as I promised God, and I will promise you this morning, since you have chosen to honor me so greatly by conferring upon me this degree, I will not stop. I will not be silent. For as long as little children in those concentration camps in South Africa, the South African government euphemistically calls relocation areas, die of hunger, we cannot be silent. As long as children of 8 years old are thrown in jail and tortured, we cannot be silent. As long as soldiers at gunpoint must force our children to go to school, we cannot be silent. As long as mothers do not know what happened to their children because they simply disappeared and their names cannot be published because of some law, we will not be silent. As long as so many of our black South African brothers and sisters die of hunger while white South Africa dies of overeating, we will not be silent. As long as there are moments where our people feel that we are overcome with despair because we can no longer hear the voice of God through the roar of guns in the townships, we will not be silent. And as long as we see that the blood of our children flows down the streets of Cape Town and KwaZulu and Port Elizabeth and Soweto in Johannesburg, we will not be silent. And no matter how many treason trials they think up against us, we will not be silent. I will rather go to jail accused of treason than be silent in the face of such evil. The South African government must not think that the whole point of putting pressure on them has now gone over. You've just had elections here. And Mr. Reagan must now think of new strategies how to support Mr. P.W. Botha. Now, maybe that is a problem for him. Your job is to make Mr. Reagan's problem even greater. Don't give him a single moment of rest. Don't let him sleep well at night. Don't let him go to California peacefully. Don't let him have a restful weekend at Camp David until apartheid exists no more. Because as surely as Mr. Botha is on his way out, so is Ronald Reagan. So is Ronald Reagan. And your job is to let South Africa's people understand Ronald Reagan does not speak for you. Ronald Reagan does not act on your behalf. Ronald Reagan can embrace Pretoria and kiss P.W. Botha. He does not do it on your behalf. You have made your choices clear, and our people will understand that. Because in the end, my brothers and sisters, doesn't matter what they say or what they do. You and I, we know that from this city arose the cry that I have heard when I was only 17 years old. This is that we are bound together in a single garment of destiny. What affects you affects us. Black people in the United States of America will never be completely free unless black people in South Africa are free. You know that. You know that. But no matter how many times they try to tell you that we don't care what you do, you don't believe those lies. I am telling you now that we do care. And we do listen, and we do hear, and we do respond, and we want you to respond. And so when our cry goes up, listen to us. When we call for help, listen to us. When our children march down the streets knowing that they will be killed, listen to us and do what you have to do. For the blood that unites us is thicker than the water that divides us. God bless you. Mr. Mayor, dear friends, thank you very, very much for receiving this group in this way. I mean, I cannot help but think, as I've said this morning, as we meet here, things in South Africa are not getting better. We talk about approximately 23,000 people in jail under the emergency regulations. I mentioned this morning 40% of those are under 18 years old. We know that people are being tortured. There have been any number of deaths over the last 3 weeks. Nothing will come of that, as in the past. The difference is that now, because of the restrictions on the press, people do not see that on their television screens as they used to. They don't read the details. The press is not allowed to spell out the details. And many people forget, because when you don't see it on television, then you don't think about it. And the South African government thinks that if it is not on television, it actually did not happen. In the meantime, in our communities, the suffering continues. The anger of our people grows. Our younger people are almost engulfed in a total bitterness. In fact, I am surprised that under these circumstances there are so many who are able to hold on to their humanity. It is not possible, therefore, for me to, even if I should have one whole day, to say to you what is actually happening in South Africa. But just to say to you, yes, indeed, it is much worse than we can ever think or find words to say. At the same time, I can also tell you with a certainty that I know because I've experienced it, the struggle continues. There is no way in the world that the South African government, no matter what it employs, no matter the degree of the violence it is prepared to use, will be able to stop our people in our determination to become a free people. That I can tell you, without bravado, without bragging, without creating more illusions. I think, please accept that as a fact. There are many things that are happening now And the struggle, we have discovered, continues at many levels. I have found, much to my own surprise, that more than half my ministry now is a direct confrontation with the South African government, with its police, with its army. In 1 week, not so very long ago, 3 times in 1 week, I literally had to walk into the barrels of guns. Not because, again, I am very brave. Those friends who know me well know that that is so. I get scared easily, but certain things you simply have to do. And when you do that, and when you, at the end of the week, think about what could have happened to you over that one single week, you think, my Lord, what a situation it is in which we live. Then all of a sudden, from that kind of situation, I find myself being called upon by people in business who have said to me, we have talked with the South African government, we are totally disillusioned, we know that the promises that they make mean nothing at all. We've come to you to tell us that there is hope somewhere. I find myself, therefore, and as all of us, in strange roles. We are here because this is also another level of the struggle that we have to lead. Coca-Cola came to us not so very long ago and said, we want to establish a fund. It took us a long time to even say yes, because we needed to check this out 100 times over, talk with people, long and deep discussions in our own communities and outside, what to do. They then said to us, we will be honest with you, and these are our plans. Now Coca-Cola is disinvesting from South Africa. Now General Motors is also disinvesting from South Africa, and so is IBM. I can say these things now, you see, because my charges have been withdrawn the other day. I'm no longer going to stand trial for treason because I called for disinvestment, so they say. So now I can do what they said that I have said. But what we need from you now, Mr. Mayor, brothers and sisters, is to think with us as this struggle continues. We must continue to make decisions at many levels. We must continue to take initiatives at many levels. While we pressure companies in the United States to get themselves out of South Africa so that they no longer support the apartheid economy, the next step for you to understand is to say, what do you do with those things that you have to leave in South Africa under law? Who do you sell them to? If you withdraw from South Africa because of the pressure of the suffering, oppressed people, how can your withdrawal now all of a sudden benefit the oppressor again? That we must not allow to happen. And these are things that we need to talk about, so that when we continue our strategies for sanctions, for pressure, for disinvestment, for pulling out, let us now begin to put our heads together and say, how can we use this creatively to find ways and means of helping the black community to come to terms with the vacuum that will exist, and to come to terms with our own empowerment, so that we will be better equipped to continue to challenge the South African government. These are some of the things that I wanted to say. Let me finish off by saying this. The relationship between us has developed over the years. Black people in the United States now have a totally different feeling about South Africa than I remember 5 years ago. The same is true with us. Let me warn you, we're not going to let you go. We're not going to let you go for many, many reasons. And we are going to call upon you and say, look, through circumstances of history and otherwise, you in many fields have been able to acquire the experiences that we must still learn. So we're going to come and tap those experiences from you. We're going to ask you to help us. We will help you to understand that the struggle is going on and what that struggle means, and that is not as simple sometimes as the media here would make it out to be. That we're willing to do. But I am saying now that we have got to look at a very clearly worked out program of cooperation. Atlanta, Jake Scherwel has said, is a city that has played a special role in the civil rights struggle. For some reason now, Atlanta emerges as a very key city in our own struggle. We should make it so, Mr. Mayor. We should enhance this possibility. We should exploit, in the good sense of the word, every single possibility, and if they are not there, let's create them. I say to the students, if we run out of possibilities because there are too many policemen around, let's create them. The one good thing about the South African government is they're not too creative, and so if we are creative, we're always 2 steps ahead. So please help us in that regard. Joseph Lowry is next to me, a man I have great and deep respect for. Coretta King sits on the other side of this table. You've got incredible resources here. We've got resources. Let's pool those resources. I'll come back to Atlanta. We will come back to Atlanta. And we must work on definite plans. No longer just simply making nice speeches, although nice speeches is also okay, but plans that will rest on solid thinking as to what we will do in the next year or 2 or 3 or 4 years. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you again for receiving us in this way. I'm always amazed at how it sometimes happens that the experiences of love and friendship and warmth of a lifetime can actually be compressed and experienced into one day. I have a feeling that this has happened ever since I came here yesterday morning and leaving Atlanta this afternoon. For that, too, we thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
That's our program this evening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Walt Elder.